Hi guys, Codetutor here and my name is Anil Deshpande. In the previous video, you have seen whenever an event occurs, you can make that particular broadcast receiver to respond to that. You can register the broadcast receiver either in the manifest file or through the code. But this is not always the scenario wherein you only have one particular broadcast receiver to respond to an event. You might be having more than one broadcast receiver, and whenever a event occurs, all those broadcast receiver might be registered to listen to the same event. So all of those three broadcast receiver will respond. But what if you want to control the order in which these particular broadcast receiver get triggered? Or is there a mechanism in which I can control, let's say, first particular broadcast receiver to be triggered, and then till first broadcast receiver completes its processing, I don't want it to trigger second broadcast receiver. Only after the first completes, the second gets triggered, and then after second completes, the third gets triggered. I also want to process the data in first broadcast receiver and then forward it to the second broadcast receiver, and after processing it in the second, I want to process it further in the third broadcast receiver. To do this, we use something called as ordered broadcast receivers. So in this video, we will see a demo on how to achieve this. Before I show you the code, I want you to understand how this is being achieved in the demo. I will be implementing two broadcast receivers and then I will trigger a intent. And when this intent is triggered, these two broadcast receiver will initially get triggered because those are registered in the manifest file with a action and category value which are one and the same. And when these particular broadcast receiver get triggered, I am basically going to log which particular broadcast receiver triggered first in a breadcrumb format. The breadcrumb format is usually the file navigation system that you typically see in any menu based UI. We are going to use the same breadcrumb format to determine in which particular order the broadcast receivers are getting triggered. So let me show you the code here. I have two broadcast receivers. You can observe that in both the broadcast receiver 1 and the broadcast receiver 2, the logic in the onReceive method is basically to construct the breadcrumb and log it to the logcat. I have given the link to the source code in the description section below in the video. You can download the code and go through the logic. Then I have an activity, and in that particular activity I have a button, and when I click on that particular button, I am basically sending a broadcast. And if you observe the manifest file, I have registered both the broadcast receivers with same action and category value. So let me run this. So when I click on the button, you will observe that broadcast receiver 1 and broadcast receiver 2 are getting triggered separately. And if you go back to the manifest file and just change the order and rerun this, you will observe that to some extent, by just changing the order in which the broadcast receivers are registered in the manifest file, you can influence the order in which they get actually executed. So now if I click, you will see that the broadcast receiver 2 is getting triggered first and then the 1. I can set a priority in the intent filter and the value is always integer. And the way priority works is higher the number, higher the priority. So in this case, broadcast receiver 1 has got higher priority, so that will get executed earlier. So let me rerun this. You can observe that the broadcast receiver 1 has got higher priority, so that is why it is getting executed. I will keep the order in which they are declared in the manifest file same, but change the priority. You can observe that now the broadcast receiver 2 gets executed first and then broadcast receiver 1. Even though I have changed the priority of the broadcast receiver in the manifest file, it only just changes the order in which the broadcast receiver get triggered. They do get triggered, but they get triggered independently. But this is not sufficient. I basically want to control the propagation of intents from one broadcast receiver to the second broadcast receiver. To accomplish that, what I have to do is, in the on click of the button, instead of using the method called as send broadcast, there is another method called as send ordered broadcast. You have to use that particular method, and the parameter that it takes is intent and the string permission. Since we don't need any specialized permissions in this particular case, I can just pass the null value. So I can run this code. So let me click on this particular button. You can see that in the first broadcast receiver, we are getting the output as start broadcast receiver, and then automatically the control is going to the broadcast receiver 2, and in the broadcast receiver we are fetching the previous breadcrumb value, which is start broadcast receiver 1, and then I am adding the tag, so it is broadcast receiver 2. So what we have been able to achieve is first broadcast receiver is getting triggered because the priority of the broadcast receiver 1 is higher, and then after processing the data in the broadcast receiver 1, automatically the second broadcast receiver is getting triggered. Until and unless the broadcast receiver 1 completes, the broadcast receiver 2 will not get executed, and you can transfer the processed data from broadcast receiver 1 to the broadcast receiver 2. In case you want to have a complete loop back, what I mean to say is after triggering the broadcast receiver, on click of this particular button, it should go to the broadcast receiver 1 and then broadcast receiver 2 and finally come back to the main activity. There is another method. It is a overloaded method of send ordered broadcast. You can observe that in the send order broadcast, I am passing the intent, permission is null, and I am creating an anonymous inner class of a broadcast receiver. What this particular broadcast receiver will do is it will receive the breadcrumb from the second broadcast receiver and finally attach the another tag. The another tag in this case is main activity, and finally it will log that particular breadcrumb to the logcat. So let me run this. Now when I click on this particular button, you will observe that in the broadcast receiver 1, start broadcast receiver, and then it propagates to broadcast receiver 2, and finally after broadcast receiver 2 it comes to the main activity. So the broadcast receiver that you pass here as the argument to the send order broadcast will basically act as the final callback broadcast, which is going to receive the final intent. That brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.